All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is the back-to-school safe learning plan and Laker online learning option.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good evening, board members and Prior Lake Savage Area School community members. I'll ask Kate Kyle to assist with pulling up the presentation and then sharing the presentation with me. Dr. Dan Edwards will also be joining later as we talk about Laker Online. It's hard to believe and that we are only a month away from school. We have been planning all summer and diligently taking a look at the data and reviewing and monitoring both what the CDC and Minnesota Department of Health have shared with us in terms of COVID-19 guidance. Additionally, we have and will continue to monitor district, county, state levels closely throughout the year as part of our decision-making process, in addition to our regular communication with local and state health partners to ensure a safe return to school for students and staff this fall. The purpose of this presentation is to share those plans with you that we have at this time, knowing that should COVID-19 case rates increase, additional safety measures may need to be taken to protect the health and safety of our students, staff, and community. We know the importance of in-person learning and are happy to be planning for in-person learning as we start the 21-22 school year. Schools are an important part of the infrastructure of our communities, as we learned more than ever last year. I also want to recognize and acknowledge navigating this pandemic is really difficult for everyone. COVID-19 has impacted us all differently, and it's impossible for an organization as large as ours, with almost 9,000 students and 1,250 staff members, to make decisions that will be universally supported by stakeholders with varying experiences, needs, and perspectives. I want to thank those of you who have contacted the board members and myself. I want to thank those of you who are here this evening and have shared your voices with us to give us that input and feedback. As a district, we rely on our health public experts to advise our actions as we continue to prioritize the health and safety of our students and community. Leaders have worked throughout the summer to prepare our back-to-school safe learning plan. The Prior Lake Savage Incident Command Team met July 29th. It was the day after the Minnesota Department of Health provided their best practices for the return to school. And we sent communication to stakeholders that evening about our plan. Scott County Public Health has continued to meet weekly with Scott County Superintendent school districts to review public health data, updates, and to assist us with the guidance as we move forward. Kate and I both sit on those weekly meetings with Scott County Public Health. In addition, Kate meets with the Minnesota Department of Health and district school nurse coordinators and health coordinators every 2 weeks, and I know did a meeting last week, and I think some of you board members did as well with the Minnesota Department of Health. So we continue to be connected with our public health experts. At this point, I'm going to ask Kate to share some data. We just collected some data both from last spring and currently, just so we get a sense of what has been happening over the course of last spring and through the summer.
I'm just going to review some spring data with everyone collected at our elementary schools. We did send home 872 students due to COVID symptoms. 5% of those symptomatic students tested positive for COVID-19. We also quarantined 477 students due to a close contact at school, and 1% of those students quarantined tested positive. As for the secondary schools in the spring, we sent home 290 students with COVID-19 symptoms, and 27% of those students tested positive for COVID-19. 396 students were quarantined due to close contact at school, and 1% of those quarantined students tested positive for COVID-19. The number is quite a bit smaller for the secondary students simply because they came in full-time in person quite a bit later than our elementary students. So I just wanted to point that out. Looking at our data, 91% of the students who did test positive for COVID-19 were exposed due to a household exposure or an event outside school, such as a party. And then I just wanted to review some of our summer data. We did have 305 students enrolled in summer school programming and 661 students enrolled in Kids Company, and we have not had any COVID-19 cases reported in the school buildings throughout that summer programming.
Folks, we're going to keep everyone quiet, or we're going to clear the room.
I just pulled up our COVID data for Scott County. The most recent rate is 12 per 10,000. And as you can see, back in May, we were as high as 27.34, but we are definitely seeing an increase in those rates. And as comparison, I just wanted to show the 7-day moving average since the pandemic began. We did have quite a large spike back in November of 2020, and then another little spike back in April, and I just wanted to show kind of where we are at now in comparison with where we have been. Then I also wanted to share some vaccination data with all of you. At Prior Lake Savage area schools, we have provided multiple opportunities for staff and students to receive COVID-19 vaccinations if they wish. We will continue to partner with our local public health to promote vaccination clinics for students ages 12 and under when it becomes available. The current graphic breaks down vaccination rates in multiple age groups. Our Scott County vaccination rate overall for ages 12 and older is 67.9. This data is current as of July 27th. You can see some of the percentages may exceed 100% because the populations of those age groups are estimates and they're not the actual number of people in each age group. We have continued to monitor guidance and local data. One of the key mitigation strategies is the importance of students and staff staying home when they are sick. We ask for continued partnership from our parents to ensure families monitor symptoms and keep students home from school when they are ill. We will continue to layer our protection strategies to keep students and staff safe in our buildings. Face coverings. We will follow the CDC and MDH health guidelines, which include recommending the universal indoor masking for all people in the school setting, regardless of vaccination status. Face coverings are required on all district-provided transportation per CDC. We will continue to collaborate with our public health partners at Scott County as we look to their guidance for metrics and when we may need to change this guidance. In general, people do not need to wear masks when outdoors. However, particularly in areas of high and substantial transmission, CDC does recommend that people age 2 and older who are not fully vaccinated wear a mask in crowded outdoor settings or during activities that involve sustained close contact with others who are not fully vaccinated. We have talked with Scott County Public Health about utilizing a data matrix that would help guide a change if needed to masks based on our current community transmission rates. Scott County was unable to give us guidance to use the system at this time. Cleaning and sanitizing, we will continue to follow our district's updated enhanced cleaning plan for daily cleaning and disinfecting high-touch surfaces to reduce the risk of spreading COVID-19 and other infectious diseases. Per CDC guidance, cleaning once daily is usually enough to sufficiently remove potential viruses that may be on surfaces. If a school has had an ill person in the building, the space will be cleaned and disinfected. Water lines in our drinking fountains have been flushed when the water fountains were reopened. Heating, ventilating, and air conditioning buildings in the system have been assessed and maintained for proper ventilation and filtration. Systems have maximized outside air and have extended their run times. Systems are continuously evaluated and maintained to ensure health indoor air quality that meet our industry standards. Meals will be served from the kitchen, servery, and eatery in the cafeteria. Curbside meals will be available for free to grades E through 8 students learning from home. More details on that will come. Seating in the cafeteria will be determined by standard capacity guidelines. Cleaning and sanitation will return to standard practice per Minnesota Department of Health. Return to our pre-COVID practices for food distribution and seating. We will not be able to host lunch visitors at this time, but we will continue to evaluate that. Confirmed COVID-19 cases will continue to be reported to the Minnesota Department of Health. If a student tests positive for COVID-19, Prior Lake Savage area schools will require the student to stay home for 10 days after symptom onset or 10 days after specimen collection date, and the student must be fever-free for at least 24 hours without fever-reducing medication, and other symptoms of COVID-19 are improving. Only people who test positive for COVID-19 and their unvaccinated household members will be required to quarantine. Family staff will be notified if there is a positive case in their classroom in our E through 5 buildings, and if there is a case, we will notify building-wide in our 6 through 12 buildings, and families can determine if they wish to quarantine. For our COVID-19 vaccinations, we will recommend them for all eligible individuals by Minnesota Department of Health and CDC. The COVID vaccination is not a requirement to attend school, but we do encourage families to self-report your COVID-19 vaccination information so it can be included in your child's school immunization record.
Thank you, Kate. As a reminder, Kate joined us mid-year last year as the district health coordinator. What a time to join a district, and we certainly have appreciated and needed her expertise and insights. So thank you so much, Kate. Just in summary, before I hand this off to Dr. Edwards as he talks about Laker Online, we really are looking forward, like everyone I know, to being in person with students this fall. We'll continue to implement the layered mitigation strategies that we've communicated to families and shared an overview with you this evening. We'll monitor local data, and we'll continue meeting weekly with Scott County Public Health as well as with MDH as needed. And we are in this together, so we want to encourage everyone to do all that they can to help reduce the spread so we can keep our kids in schools and have an exceptional year this year. So with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Edwards to come forward and thank you, Kate, and share some information about Laker Online. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to give a little historical context, if you recall, in early summer, we had put out an interest survey to our families, and it was in early June. And at that time, it was in regard to their interest in an online offering. And at that time, we really did not have the interest level to warrant us moving forward in a sustainable format. And so we put a pause on it. However, throughout the summer months, we've received inquiries from families, principals at the building level or us at the district level have received inquiries about that. And we were excited that in mid-July, MDE announced a new way to offer online programming, and frankly, we're encouraging districts to consider that as an offering, and we took that into a great consideration in mid to late July and submitted prior to the August 1st deadline an opportunity to offer an online learning option for our students grades K through 12 this fall. And pending school board action tonight, we are hopeful that we can begin a registration process starting tomorrow for currently enrolled students. I'll speak more specifically about that in a moment. But it will, Laker Online, we anticipate that it will still be a fairly small number of interested folks, and we are planning accordingly. However, until we actually ask for commitment and registration, we won't fully know that. So Laker Online, because of that, will not offer specialized one-on-one programming or Sage Academy, Spanish Immersion, or MidCaps. Students would be, if they were to enroll, would be enrolling in a more generalized approach. We intend for a K-5 program and a 6-12 program to be offered. At the elementary level, we anticipate, just based upon that initial interest that I spoke about earlier in early June, where we didn't have a particular grade level that had more than 10 students, families that had expressed initial interest. We are looking at it as a possibility that we would have a multi-age offering, combining of grades. And until we know more specifically about specific registration interest, we won't be able to specifically answer what that might look like, but we have ideas around that. And at the secondary level, in conjunction with our campuses, Hidden Oaks and Twin Oaks, Prior Lake High School, and Bridges ALC, we are going to be offering a 6-12 program, and we'll give a little more specific about that in a moment. So I want to highlight a couple of areas, the class schedule specifically. Start off with the class schedule. Students would participate in a daily synchronous online opportunity within the class periods, and an asynchronous. So we defined synchronous previously last year when those were new terms to all of us. We defined at that time synchronous as online at the same time, all students learning in that particular class at the same time, versus asynchronous, the independent working on your own time. And that will be in each case led by a licensed, again pending board approval this evening, a licensed Prior Lake Savage area school teacher. And the synchronous learning will follow a similar schedule in that students, as though they were in class with peers in person, follow a daily schedule similar to that, equivalent to their particular level or their particular grade. I actually failed, I apologize, in my previous comment, I failed to mention about going back to that specifically students who are currently enrolled. When the state put out this opportunity for a district to submit for this online for this year, we are not an online provider. An online provider would allow us to have students come to us like some of the area districts in the metro area offer online. We could have students come from other districts. That is not what this is for. This is intended to be a point for this school year, and districts submit for a first semester. That was our application, that was our submission, that was approved by MDE to offer for first semester. And then we, prior to the close of first semester, we submit whether we intend to continue just for the duration of this school year or submit application to become an online provider. At this time, we intend to submit an application and follow the timelines associated with that, so that moving forward we can be an online provider that potentially could have students not only in Prior Lake Savage area schools but from other districts. But at this time, this program would only be available to those who are currently enrolled in Prior Lake Savage area schools. Our curriculum, specifically at the secondary level, will be having classes that are taught, again, 6-12, and they will be augmented. The curriculum will be augmented with Edmentum, which is a digital curriculum that we currently have available to our students who are enrolled at Bridges ALC. Question was asked earlier related to targeted services and credit recovery. That program is used to give us a wide breadth of courses that students could get, and so we're going to tap into that resource that currently we haven't tapped into at the 6-12 level. Core classes will consistently be by grade level as they are, so English Language Arts or English at the secondary level, math, science, and social studies, and then specialist subjects at the elementary level will be determined based upon enrollment, but specifically what we're talking about there are offerings of music, art, and physical education. And then at the secondary level, once again, elective courses will be determined based upon the registration and dependent on at what grade level and how many students we have registered. But we have that Edmentum augmented curriculum. We have the opportunity to have a little bit more diverse course offerings, but I don't want to be promising that we can have as robust a course offerings as we have in our Hidden Oaks Twin Oaks Middle School campus, or Prior Lake High School, or Bridges ALC. We will continue. We recognize that students that would be potentially enrolled in this program would have a variety of service needs, and that we would embed that academic intervention within the program, both from the academic standpoint as well as social emotional supports that are currently in place, specifically, for example, at the elementary level with social work services and supports, and then secondary at the 6-12 level with counseling and social work supports that are in place. Students would have, if they were enrolled, they would be a Laker and therefore have access to all of the Laker programming that we have in the participation in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, and similar to their in-person peers. So they would be able to participate in that programming as well. So in summary, what we're looking for here momentarily after the completion of this presentation will be an initial proposal. Again, at this time, we do not know specifically how much interest there is out there, and you'll see later in the staffing proposal. I don't want to steal Jim's thunder, but we're going to be asking for up to 2.0 at the elementary level and 1.0 at the secondary level, and the 2.0 would again allow us potentially that creativity and creation of multi-grade levels depending on the registration, and then the secondary would support existing staffing within our secondary buildings to support the students who would enroll in 6-12 programming. So I think that's where we're at for questions. And I assume that's for both Kate and I, potentially.
All right, questions? That was kind of a long presentation. Yep, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so I've got several questions, starting with, obviously an online certified provider takes a little bit more work, and are we still planning on pursuing that regardless of the current state?
Yes, that is our plan, and there with this submission for this offering to start the school year, they have given us deadlines. We have to, if we have students who enroll in this, we have to update them with our enrollment on October 1st, just like we do for all other supports, and then we continue to develop that plan and submit to them by the end of January what our intentions are, and also they're offering with that what appears to be a very hands-on and supportive environment from the Department of Education to help districts become online providers.
Okay, that's good. Are they writing a check too, or is that just
I don't think so.
I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt.
Obviously, this past year saw our teachers under a tremendous amount of stress, teaching both synchronous and asynchronous. And 3 additional headcount doesn't seem like it's enough. I know that's probably dependent upon the actual enrollment. What are we going to do to not go with what happened last year with the synchronous and asynchronous learning with all of our teachers?
Yes, and to be clear, these would be specific positions for that teaching format only. So to be an online teacher, we would intend that we would post these positions, and these would be on top of existing staffing. And I don't want to go too far in this. If I'm speaking out of turn, please let me know. But intend that we would post these additional positions, looking for candidates who potentially within our current teaching ranks or elsewhere that would be interested in teaching specifically in this type of format, without any in-person expectations on them. So I think that the difference would be, we had teachers throughout the year last year that not only had in-person students in front of them, but also had online students who they were supporting as well. So different at the elementary level, certainly, but following more of that model that was in place at the elementary level, where they were specifically an online teacher.
If we have more enrollment than anticipated, will we be asked to increase that head count?
I think we're going to have to look closely at class sizes because, again, these students are coming from existing classrooms, so we'll continue to watch the enrollment numbers. We're asking for this to get it started, recognizing that we're probably going to have the level of demand. If that demand increases and we can't live within existing staffing, I don't want to speak out of turn, but we'll be back talking about it. Jim, maybe.
Yeah, excuse me. I think as I look at this, and we're somewhat in uncharted waters, one, we're already doing this, right, Dan? The ALC teachers have been doing this model in the past, so we do have something to go by there. But as far as additional staffing versus current staff, to Dan's point, I see it as a movement. As the more kids you get and the more you draw out of a building, the more we're apt to look at what are the staffing levels in the building and do we shift some positions over. But initially, the first three are just additional staff above and beyond what we already have in the buildings.
So my general question is, and I've got another question after this, but I just want to be clear that are we going to be asking our teachers to do double duty here? And 3 additional is going to help with that or prevent that? I'm asking a blunt question.
We are not
because
asking
The answer is no.
current teachers to do double duty, no.
Thank you.
And I think that, the biggest issue here is, and that's why we wanted to bring it forward this evening and get approval so that we can begin the registration process. When we did that survey last June, and help me with my numbers, but I believe there were about 42 at that time, elementary students or families with elementary students that were interested. Again, that was not a commitment. We just wanted to see what would it look like. And I think at the secondary is more like 60.
Yep,
So it
correct.
was, I think, less than 100 total. And that was at that point why we just said, that we weren't going to move forward with it because of what MDE allowed us to do with a quicker timeline and because of some of the ESSER funding. We said we want to at least allow this opportunity for our families, and we'll know. And I'm guessing we'll have a fairly short timeline for registration.
Very short, hopefully tomorrow, through the 17th of August, so a
that will-
one-week turnaround.
So that'll help us then, Mary, if all of a sudden we've got a couple hundred elementary students registering, then we are going to have to look at our existing staffing. But no, it is absolutely not our intent that staff do what we asked them to do last year with both. And if that means we have to do some shifting of staff, we'll have to do that. If that means we need to come back to you, we'll do that. But we'll be able to do that as quickly as possible.
Okay. And one of the biggest drawbacks of obviously of online learning and the hybrid learning was the, and I appreciate, first of all, the upfront, we're not going to offer this for SAGE, we're not going to offer this for Lalo de Lago, and all that. But what about band, choir, tech ed courses, things like that? And I know this is very raw still, not really worked out, but that, of course, is an ongoing question.
So that is why we are leaning on the existing partnership that we've had with Bridges, ALC, and use of Edmentum as a way to offer diverse course offerings to students that enroll at Bridges. We're expecting that we can similarly lean on that moving forward. In the registration and the communication that we have planned to go out, pending board action tonight, it asks specific questions about students, not courses specific, but grade levels, so we get a sense of what that looks like. And then we have identified that we will turn that information over to Dave Brown and his team at the ALC to work with those families to figure out what is the course makeup, what does that look like, and they're very accustomed to doing that and essentially building a specialized program for those students. Obviously, there are some limitations around that, but our goal would be, again, to support and have our students remain Lakers. That's what this is all about. That's what Laker Online is all about, is helping them stay connected with our school and be a student here in Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. So that's a part of that, particularly at the secondary level, for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, yep.
Clarifying. I just want to ask, given the setup and not wanting our teachers to be doing what they did last year, does that demand that our students and families who are opting in, opt in for the full semester?
Yes, the registration form that we have prepared to go out will be expecting a commitment for the semester, as well as there will be a question to gauge their interest for the entire year. And so we will know from a planning perspective what that looks like. But the commitment is at a minimum for a semester. That is correct.
Thanks.
My question. Jonathan?
Backtrack to Kate. Can you elaborate on, you briefly explained it, but there were some numbers that were confusing to me, the over 100% numbers. It makes it more difficult to have confidence in all of them when we have weird numbers
So
like that.
that graph comes directly from Scott County or the numbers or percentages, and they kind of guesstimate the percentage of 19 to 25-year-olds and 30 to 50-year-olds. That's why when they have a higher than that number vaccination rate, it appears over 100%. And so Lisa from Scott County did want me to preface with that the data is relevant even though the percentages are over 100 just because they are guesstimates of age groups.
Okay. So what you're saying is the government hasn't counted every one of us
That is
perfectly.
correct.
It also
Didn't we
kind of
just do a
means
census?
they're double dipping between age groups
I mean, it
too,
is, yeah,
so.
yeah. The other question, and I guess as much a comment as anything else, I find it very helpful to hear all of the detailed numbers from our buildings and our experience over the course of the past year. In particularly, our numbers over the course of this summer, when we have had kind of business as usual,
Yeah.
without transmission. It is, it makes me more comfortable with what we're talking about doing, to hear local, like down to our buildings, numbers. So thank you for that detailed information.
And Jonathan, I'll just add to that, because going forward, there is that requirement that all positive cases are reported. So that will be data that we will continue to track. We have an incident command team meeting on this Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit about both the frequency of our meetings, at least as we get into the start of the school year, as well as what data we'll track this year. We tracked mounds of data last year, and we'll have to take a look to see what is the most significant data points that we want to track moving forward, because you're right, the local data is, the building and district data is
It's the
far
most-
more relevant than zip code data or county data.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, personnel items.
All right.
Jim.
Board Chair, board members, Superintendent Stallo, 2 additional staffing requests for you tonight. The first one is for an additional .2 in elementary specialist time. I don't know if you remember or not, but last year when we were in distance learning, it wasn't as FTE heavy needed in specialist under the distance learning model. So what we would have needed if we were in person isn't what we needed when we went distance learning. So we want to go back to what we did pre-COVID, where every student has a consistent experience when it comes to specialists in the buildings. Another thing that we didn't take into account and we didn't come forward with is additional staffing with Loyola going to Grainwood and splitting from Westwood. One of the things we have with specialists is, I would call it inefficiencies in staffing, because we have staff that move between buildings. When that happens, you lose some available teaching time as a requirement, right? So by going from, 6 to 7 sites, it probably would have taken a 0.4 or 0.5 to make that happen in specialist time. So I'm not trying to say this is a good deal, but a 0.2 in order to make this work. Patrick Glenn from Jeffers Pond has been working really hard on making this work, and I think Richie's back there doing the same thing, or was trying to make the specialist schedule work. And we have taken your direction seriously about being extremely efficient with our FTEs, and that we've been squeezing them all summer. And I think this is we right now, I think we can do it with the 0.2. If we get a lot of kids back, everybody stay tuned, because we could be back, and that would be a good thing for more FTE. So again, before you is a additional 0.2 in elementary staffing, and I would recommend approval.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the elementary specialist .2 as listed?
So moved.
By Michael, second.
Second.
By Jonathan. Any questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0.
The second additional staffing request is in regards to what you just heard from Dr. Edwards, and this would be in order to support Laker Online. We initially are requesting 3 FTE, and again, that is above and beyond what we already have scheduled to the FTE that are placed in the buildings currently. So we'll see what the interest is, but initially our recommendation for approval is 3 additional classroom FTE.
With that, I'll make the motion to approve the 3 FTEs. Do I have a second? Okay. By Julie. Any comments or questions? Jonathan?
Jim, can you just clarify, number one, that number, it sounds like that number is based on our anticipated interest level. Is that consistent with our ratios in the buildings? And it seems as though if we do that, since these are our students, it's only 3 and it's a modest number of students, but it seems like that would actually bring down our overall ratio because we're adding 3 positions.
Yeah, I think you answered your question there.
I'd confirm my understanding.
Well, and we just don't know what this offering will do, right? If this brings some people back that were not here last year, that would be great. But I think it's an guess based upon the interest that we had, and we're just going to have to wait in the next week what Dr. Edwards and his staff gets back related to that. So I'd love to give you a definitive answer, but I think we're going to have to take a week here to see what this does and then adjust as necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. And that is it. Okay, policy. Second reading of our policies. So these have been on for 3 meetings, I think. And if anyone has any comments, I know we had some updating of wording, but nothing, I think it was just typo. So is there any appetite in taking these all at once? Is that what we're feeling?
All at once is fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So do I have a motion to take policy 413, 502, 520, 522, 528, 529, and policy 606? Do I have a motion?
So made.
By Mary, a second?
Second.
By Michael. Any comments or questions? I'll just make a comment for those of you that aren't here every week. Just so everyone knows, we have a initial reading. Well, it's not even a reading. It's an introduction where we have questions and comments on these. Then we have a first reading. Then we have a second reading. Then we have an actual approval. So we've talked about these policies like a lot, like in the last few meetings. So that's why you're going to see us kind of cruise through this, just so everyone knows that. And we do, we are and have been dedicated for the last 6 years to go through all of our policies. We have up to policies 900. So if anyone has light reading or has insomnia like I do, in the middle of the night and wants to read our policies, they are online. But we do, as a board, make a commitment to go through these, the entirety of the all policies every 3 years, which my first 6 years on the board, there was some policies that we were reviewing that were from like 1980. So we've really kind of made a commitment to continue to look at these policies, because that is really one of our main functions as board members is policy. So just
Can I add something?
sure.
If you have insomnia and you want to get over it, go up at night and read the policies. Don't.
It doesn't really work if you ask me. But anyway. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those pass 7-0. Administrative reports.
Thank you. At Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, our mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global community. And tonight, I'd like to highlight some of the work in which we have been engaged to that end. First of all, some school year planning, which you just heard about. Summer is a busy time planning as we prepare for the upcoming year. A big part of that includes the implementation of the safety protocols for in-person learning. It also includes continuing to gather as an administrative team and planning for our upcoming Learning Leader Retreat, which will focus on our strategic plan and priority work for the upcoming year. In addition, I recently attended the Minnesota State High School League Board of Directors workshop where we reviewed the league's strategic directions for the year, safety protocols, fall schedules, and more. It's also that planning time for many of our professional organizations, and I know many board members attended the Minnesota School Board Association Fall Conference. MDE and MASA also had their fall conference last week as well. So lots of organizations having the same conversations that we're having tonight around how do we start the year safely, getting kids back in our buildings, and really looking at the big work for the year. In terms of the technology levy, we'll continue to prepare informational materials surrounding our tech levy request that will be at the on the November 2nd ballot. We are one of the only neighboring and comparable school districts without the dedicated source of funding for our technology needs. Technology is foundational in our students' classroom learning and is also vital for our school security systems. Our district website's a great resource for the information about the levy request. As the school year gets underway, we will have presentations, print material, a short video, and mailings to help our community members make an informed vote. I anticipate sharing that full set of referendum information materials at the September 8th board meeting. And we have been engaged in our Great Start to Kindergarten. Elementary schools have been hosting the Great Start to Kindergarten event that runs through Friday. Every incoming kindergarten student and their families have individual appointments to visit their schools, meet with a kindergarten teacher, office staff, and the principal, and provide information about their student. Teachers also meet one-on-one with students to complete a reading assessment, to the Fast Bridge reading assessment that I know you've heard about. Principals have reported with enthusiasm that feedback have been very positive, especially around their child being in kindergarten and being inside the schools to meet their staff. There's been a lot of energy and excitement as we welcome, get ready for this, class of 2034. Thank you.
All right. Any administrative reports?
Yes, I'd like to take a minute just to update you on the enrollment. Our current enrollment is increasing at the high school. Our elementary school is pretty stable at this point. We're still looking for additional students to enroll at our elementary schools. We're about 53 students short of what we budgeted. The middle school we have had some enrollments there as well. And then our high school, these next couple of weeks are a little fluid as people are coming in, and we're finding out more about people who are leaving the district just for various reasons like they have normally in the past. So I'll continue to update you on that enrollment. And like I said, it's a busy time for us for enrollment. We see a lot of enrollments coming in right now. And so we're hoping to reach that budget number fairly quickly here. Also, our audit started today. And so it's a very positive start to our audit. It's the second year with MMKR. And so the unfortunate piece about our audit this year may be that we have to split our audit because the federal guidelines haven't come for our single audit. And so last year they came out in December. And so they're hoping they would come out in November this year. Usually we're presenting the audit to the board in October. So we may bring our regular audit along with our comprehensive annual financial report at that point, and then do the single audit for the federal programming later as we have more information. And so I just want you to be aware of that as we continue to move forward in this process. And then, as I stated earlier, working on our levy certification. That's open now until the end of the month, and then we'll start receiving reports sometime in September for that. The board typically approves and opens the meeting in September, the work session, in order for the board to approve that preliminary levy certification. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the board and Dr. Stallo for allowing me to complete my presidency as the president of MNSBA this past year. It was a very interesting experience, as it was the year of COVID, and so we had a lot of new things happening even within our organization, and being able to just find time to give really good information with all of the new funding sources and all of those different requirements to all of our membership was interesting, but we were able to do that, and we continue to do that as well now. And so on of MNSBA, I was able to receive a $1,000 scholarship for students in the Prior Lake Savage School District.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Julie.
Any other administrative reports? No. Board reports? Any board reports?
I'll update on the conference.
What conference?
MNSBA,
Oh.
the seminar. Oh, with somebody else.
Oh,
What did I do?
no, I was trying to remember.
That was last Thursday.
I know, I was like, it seems like a year ago. Okay.
I was just briefly going to say the MNSBA
Yes.
conference, for those of you who aren't on. A few of the highlights were just the Minnesota Safe Learning Report, a nice session on mental health. And then it was also interesting to hear the feedback. A while back, they had done focus groups with school board members on the Minnesota Constitutional Amendment, the Page Amendment, and it was nice to come full circle and have them re-examine that amendment and then pull in the feedback from school board members from across Minnesota. So I just wanted to pass that along, and I know they'll be sharing the materials with us after the fact and all of those slideshows. But it was interesting to get online with both district administrators and board members from all over the state as they tried to regroup after the last year and look forward to moving forward.
Thank you. All right, future events. The Great Start to Kindergarten assessments are August 9th through the 13th. Which we're in right now. And then the school board study session will be August 23rd at 6 o'clock right here. Staff work days, August 30th through September 2nd. And with that, we are going to close the session for discussing a negotiation strategy, and it's going to be closed in accordance to open meeting law, Minnesota statute 13D03, for the purpose of discussing negotiations. Right. So with that, thank you for coming. And we'll take a 5-minute recess. Oh, can I?